皆さん、また来てくださってありがとうございます。こちらはマンハッタンニューヨーク木曜日の午後です。ということでね、もう11月になってしまいました。ということでね、いつもはなんかお花とか乗っけてるんですけど、今日はトランプさんのニューハンプシャーでのラリーの登場シーンからちょっといつもこのね、飛行機がついてビューンって切って出てくるところがもうなんかトランプ王国の王様が来たっていう感じで、なんかいつもすごいエアフォースワンより大きいんじゃないのこれって思う、このプライベートジェットのこのでかさ、これいつも私笑っちゃうので、今日はバックグラウンドには今日はトランプさんの登場シーンを載っけています。ということで今日はね、ベン・カーソンさんが最初にコメントを出して、それからトランプさんっていう感じで、ネバダとそれからネバダとニューハンプシャーを一緒にしています。で、今日ね、ちょっと長いので、時間のある時に見てください。ということで、カーソンさんから、握手するところはこう、割愛してますけど、このカーソンさんの奥様のことをすごくトランプさんが、この奥様の支えがなきゃ、彼は本当にすごく成功者なんだけど、全然奥さんなしでは絶対ありえてないからねっていう感じで言ってて、いつもなんかコメントに、その女性へのリスペクトがあって、なんかいいなと思ったので、今日はこのトランプさんの長い演説を見てくださいということで、見てください。どうぞ。
The Biden administration managed to undo all the great progress that had been made with the Trump administration. And it's time for us now to undo what they've done and start going back in the right direction. Our allies are under attack. Now we have communism and Marxism. It's crazy stuff that's going on. Inflation is skyrocketing. Crime is out of control. People worried, should I go downtown and have dinner? Maybe that's not a safe thing to do. We have millions of illegals crossing our border. You're going to say somehow that it's Trump's fault. Everything in their opinion is Trump's fault. Well, what is going to be his fault is bringing our country back again. We had a leader who was willing to protect our freedom of speech. Now we have people worried when they say something. Am I going to be punished? Am I going to be canceled? We need the kind of leadership that will protect us. And we also need courage ourselves. What they lacked was courage. There were a lot of people who just looked at the floor and they won't say anything because they don't want some negative repercussions. But what we have to remember is that we cannot be the land of the free if we're not the home of the brave. But one man had the courage to take on the political establishment and give the people a voice in Washington with no concern about what it would cost him. You know, Donald Trump lost millions, if not billions of dollars. And he's been attacked constantly and demonized, and yet he's still there. They haven't gotten rid of him. They're trying to do everything in their power to get rid of him because he's the biggest threat to the administrative state and to the swamp. I don't call it a swamp, I call it a cesspool. They will do anything possible to get rid of him because he's the existential threat to their continuation of power. So don't be surprised at some of the other things that they're going to try. But they see his poll numbers and they're really worried. What those poll numbers tell me is that the American people are a lot smarter than they think they are. And there it is. The way we can keep it is we can put Donald J. Trump back in office. Full endorsement of Donald J. Trump because and Donald Trump believes in our freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms. And don't you get tired of those people who say you don't need a high-powered weapon to go duck hunting? Well, the Constitution and the Second Amendment is not about duck hunting. It's about the right of the people to protect themselves from an overly aggressive government. And we don't want that to happen. My friend and your friend and a friend of America, Donald J. Trump.
3 weeks ago, our world was shattered by an attack on Israel. To every Israeli and every American touched by these barbaric activities, we love you. You have to understand that. We love you and we're with you and we grieve with you. We share your anger and we stand with you 100%. Okay? 110%. Let there be no doubt the killers responsible for this horrible massacre will burn forever in the eternal pit of hell. They're going to burn forever. Long time. On that terrible Saturday morning, the world saw once again that the conflict between Israel and Hamas is not a conflict between two equal sides. This is a fight between civilization and savagery, between decency and depravity, and between good and evil. There is no comparison between a group that worships death and a group that cherishes life and cherishes our nation. Every single life that is lost in this conflict is on the shoulders of Hamas alone. It's Hamas alone. And I think you have to really add in the word Iran. People don't want to talk about it. There can be no sympathy, no excuses, and no escape from these monsters, and we will do what has to be done. And yet Joe Biden's feeble first act, one of the worst messages I've ever seen sent out to bad people, after more than 1,400 innocents, including over 40 Americans, were murdered or kidnapped. And think of this, we immediately announced that we're giving Hamas $100 million. We're going to give it to them into Gaza, but they take it 100% of it. They don't take 90%, they take 100%. They take 100% and we give them money hand over fist, and we've been doing that for many years. And then a speech was made declaring that if you support Israel, he's the worst president, he's the most incompetent president. When I'm back in the White House, the United States will stand with Israel all the way, 100%, without hesitation, without qualification, and without any apology. We're not going to be apologizing. We won't be apologizing. We will fully support the Israelis in their mission to ensure that Hamas is decimated and these atrocities will be avenged. They will be avenged. In many ways, they'll be avenged. I think even beyond what you're thinking about. Joe Biden's weakness caused the attack on Israel. Pure weakness and incompetence. Everywhere he goes, Biden's weakness provokes war and death because, as history shows, evil only respects one thing: unyielding strength. You've got to be strong, otherwise they're going to be taking over and they're going to be doing things that you wouldn't even believe. When I'm back in the White House, America's enemies will now once again, and they're going to know it, that if you try to kill our citizens, we will kill you. We will kill you. I told them all that. We had no problem. We had no problem. 3 years ago, we had no problem. For 4 years, nobody even... This is unthinkable. If you spill a drop of American blood, we will spill a gallon of yours. We do not. And we're doing it because we want to start peace. We're not going to start wars, but the wars have to be finished oftentimes before the peace. And if you don't do the wars, the peace doesn't happen. And if you're not going to be tough and ruthless like they are, it's not going to happen. We have to stop it. We have to end it once and for all. But we will use American power to deter those who would harm our people. To every American who is terrified that Joe Biden's catastrophic weakness will bring our country to ruin, and it's closer than it's ever been. I believe it's closer than ever to ruin. I believe it's closer than ever to World War III. And I will stop World War III. You will not have World War III. I can tell you that. And I make this promise to you as president: we will restore peace through strength on the earth, beyond, on the earth, For 4 straight years, I kept America safe, I kept Israel safe, and I kept the world safe. The world was a safer place, a much safer place. Today, the world is blowing up all around, no matter where you look. If I were president, the attack on Israel would never, ever have happened. I think you believe that, right? I think you believe that. Ukraine would never have happened. Inflation would never have happened. The most embarrassing moment in our history, we got the historic Abraham Accords and peace in the Middle East. Peace in the Middle East. In 4 countries, you should have had every one of them signed. Within 3 months after the election, I would have had every single one of them signed. And maybe, because they were really wanting to make a deal, maybe even Iran, if you can believe that. We would have had every country signed. You would have had real peace in the Middle East. And look at what you've got now. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. So fast. I'm proud to be the best friend that Israel has ever had. Everybody says, are you, sir, the best friend that Israel's ever had? And with 4 more years, I will defend America, and I will defend Western civilization from the barbarians and savages and fascists that you see right now trying to do harm to our beautiful Israel. We're not going to let that happen. Instead of cuddling up to the killers in Iran, as Biden has done, I will once again sanction them until their ability to fund terror is absolutely gone. And I will unleash the most powerful economic weapon there is on earth. Drill, baby, drill. Do you know what that means? Do you know what that means? You know, we have more liquid gold under our feet than any other nation, more than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, and we don't use it. We go to Venezuela to get their tar. And then we refine it in the only plant that can do that. And you know where it is? It's in Houston, Texas, okay? So when don't be so happy. Take a look at what they're doing to your air, you know, if you're a big believer in that, which you should be. I will totally demolish the deep state, and instead of targeting Trump supporters, our government will get back to fighting the terrorists where they should be, because that's our big problem. Under Biden, we have not 1 but 2 immigration disasters. We have one on the border, and we have one in the Biden State Department, which is admitting colossal amounts of jihadists into our communities and campuses and our refugee programs. That's why you see all of these big demonstrations in New York, in Chicago. Nobody can believe what's taking place. They're letting them in at levels that nobody's ever seen before. We cannot allow that to happen, and we don't want to be like Europe with jihads on every corner. That's what happens. I mean, we're going to be like Europe. You take a look at London, you take a look at Paris, you take a look at what's going on over there. We want to be the United States of America, and we want to make our country great again. Right now, we don't have a great country. We have a laughingstock. As president, I will end once and for all the mass importation of anti-Semitism into the United States. And just as I did before, we will keep radical Islamic terrorists the hell out of our country. We're going to keep them out of our country. We were keeping them out. We were keeping them out. What we call the Trump travel ban, and it was an amazing success. It was suspended immediately upon his coming into the country. And I never talked about this for 4 years. I never mentioned it. We didn't have one incident in 4 years because we kept bad people the hell out of our country. We kept them out. We didn't have not one instance. I'll also be implementing strong ideological screenings for all immigrants coming in. If you hate America, if you want to abolish Israel, if you sympathize with jihadists, then we don't want you in our country, and you're not going to be getting into our country. I will cancel the student visas of Hamas and sympathizers on college campuses. The college campuses are being taken over, and all of the resident aliens who joined in the pro-jihadist protest this month, nobody's ever seen anything like it. Come 2025, we will find you and we will deport you. We will deport you. In the past 3 weeks, crooked Joe Biden has turned a blind eye to the greatest outbreak of anti-Semitism in American history. You have the greatest. I call up friends of mine who happen to be Jewish. I say, are you watching what's going on? And they're actually frightened. These are some pretty strong people. They're tough people. They're frightened. Their kids are afraid to go to school. And they never had that before. But in our colleges, media, and even government, nobody's ever seen anything like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, who openly campaign against Israel. Nobody's ever seen this before. When asked recently about rising anti-Semitic hate, Joe Biden's own press secretary had nothing to say about the rabid mobs in the street, and they're shouting, "Kill the Jews, kill the Jews." She had nothing to say. In fact, she stuck up for the other side. She started talking about the other side. You all saw it. Nobody could believe it. Then she came back later. She said, "Oh, I misunderstood the question." As president, I will absolutely protect our Jewish citizens from these maniacs, lunatics, radical left thugs. Threats or crimes of violence against Jews will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Right now, they go after Republicans, including me. They go after lots of people. They go after Catholics. I don't know what it is with the Catholics, but they're really after the Catholics, and they're after people wanting to make their school district better. This is a strange thing that's happening in our country. While in office, I took the strongest action of any president in history to combat the vile scourge of anti-Semitism. You know that. When I get back into office, I will put every single university and college president on notice. The American taxpayer will not subsidize the creation of terrorist sympathizers on American soil. The terrorism, this pro-terrorism, is so out of control. Nobody's ever seen. I never forget the same radicals tearing down posters of Israeli hostages. Can you imagine, at our university, ripping them right off the wall? I couldn't believe it. The United States and Israel represent the pinnacle of Western civilization, which is exactly what these people want to destroy. They want to destroy it. This is why those who chant death to Israel also chant always death to America. Do you ever notice? They always put them together. And that's why American patriots and supporters of Israel, and you have tremendous support in this country, I can tell you that, must stick together come hell or high water. You have to stick together. We must have strong borders, strong military, strong families, strong cultures, and above all, we must have a strong American president. That's where it starts. You don't have a strong president, the rest is just words. It's only words. Only words. You never had any of these problems. For 4 years, you didn't have any of these problems. Think of it. You wouldn't have Ukraine. You wouldn't have Israel being attacked. You wouldn't have inflation. You wouldn't have anything. You'd have gasoline selling at $1.87. With your vote, I will defeat the jihadists, the terrorists, the communists, the Marxists, the fascists, and the anti-Semitic radical left lunatics. And we have plenty of them. We have a lot more. They're just pouring into our country. A lot coming in from China. What's that all about? We have a lot of young, strong men coming in from China. I will rescue the American economy. I will restore America's borders, which are a disaster. I will stand up for American sovereignty, and I will save American freedom starting on November 5th, 2024. Get out and vote. Because if we don't win this election, I really believe you're not going to have Israel anymore, and you're not going to have the United States of America anymore. Thank you. I love you. Make America great again. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you very much.